Greetings and welcome to today's webinar. Today is the 22nd of October and here we are for one of our FSSC webinars. I'm Colin Morgan, the Market Development Director at FSSC, and again it's my pleasure to be the moderator for today's webinar. Today's webinar is FSSC 24000 Make with Care Certify for Trust. And it's our new way of positioning FSSC 24000 as a way to support organisations to really drive the values of their brands and build confidence and also build trust. And today's webinar really is about building confidence, building trust. And today we have some really excellent speakers lined up. First of all, I'm going to turn to our first speaker, which is Francisco. And Francisco is joining us in the studio again. For those of you that have been to webinars in the past, you'll know that Francisco is a regular in the studio. This time though, he's recently back from a trip to Mexico, where he's been at a FSSC 24000 conference, which we organised there with local partners. So Francisco, welcome.
Thank you, Colin.
Great to see you in the studio, and thank you for coming as always. We also have in the studio, not in the studio today, we have dialed in to the studio. We have two very good colleagues as well. First of all, we have Elza Palenik. Now, Elza is the Head of Quality Assurance and Sustainability at Metro AG, and also, I'm really delighted to say, a recent recruit to our Board of Stakeholders. Elza's joining us from Dusseldorf in Germany. Welcome, Elza.
Thank you, Colin, and welcome everybody. Nice to meet everybody.
So good to see you. Thank you very much. We also have a new speaker as well today, and we'd like to introduce Rosie Davenport at Impact Focus, the founder. Rosie is joining us from London in the UK. And again, Rosie, welcome on board. Thank you for dialing in today.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to it.
Brilliant to see you both. Thank you very much. So there we are. We have our lineup of speakers, and really today's topics are as follows. So we're going to talk a little bit about Foundation FSSC, only a whistle-stop tour. Then we're going to talk about turning social sustainability into a competitive advantage, which Rosie is going to cover for us. Then we're going to look at driving social compliance, Metro, which Elza is going to look at. And then finally, Francisco is going to talk to us a little bit about FSSC 24000. The best way to think about it is FSSC 24000 is the building block. We have an organisational approach from Metro with Elza, and then we talk really about communications and brands and the big challenges that brands have today with Rosie. And Rosie's going to kick off in a couple of minutes first. But first of all, let's have a look at the practicalities. Now, as always with our webinars, you're all muted, but please write in your questions. Often we get to the end of the webinar and we have more questions than we can handle, but we always do our best to come back to you. We promise that. Sometimes we also give an opportunity to pre-ask the questions. Also, the webinar is recorded. And basically, when we finish the webinar after today, the collateral will be available and can be shared, and you can listen back to it as well. Sometimes people actually register, don't listen live, but really enjoy the experience afterwards. So wherever you are in the world, whatever time you listen to this, welcome and thank you for joining us today. So let's have a quick look at FSSC. So basically, for those that are familiar, and many of you will be, particularly of our scheme 22000, FSSC 22000 is our food safety scheme, and we are rapidly approaching 40,000 certificates around the world, and we've been going for 16 years. FSSC 24000 is a much newer scheme, and as you'll see today, it's really finding its way in the world as a unique scheme, particularly based on ISO management systems and having all the credentials of FSSC 22000. FSSC is based in the Netherlands, and we are launching this webinar again from the Netherlands today, but we are very global in our outlook and we have a team around the world. Now, here's what we call our brand identity model, and in very simple terms, FSSC at the centre there, our team of nearly 90 people based all around the world. We are looking to create a better world really through using our management system approaches in organisations to create great places to work, and for our FSSC 22000 users, creating a great place to work and save food at the same time. It's a straightforward proposition, and by doing this, we actually provide trust and impact in the world which our schemes bring. The way we look at the organisation and the way we approach the world is for our schemes and assurance. Now, our schemes FSSC 22,000, FSSC 24,000 and our development programme for food safety are all surrounded by our assurance scheme and basically our way of working with certification bodies to put this into the marketplace to be trusted. We then have our capacity building, which is really our way of giving back to our communities in the world. As a not-for-profit organisation, this is very important to us. And ultimately, above this, we have digital solutions, which is the power that the data we generate from all the certified organisations can bring back to you as beneficiaries of scheme owners. So that's FSSC in a nutshell, and we're really proud today to talk to you about FSSC 24,000, particularly in the context of organisations and how this can support, but also ultimately about the big challenges organisations have. And with this, I'm going to hand over to Rosie, who's going to talk about why social sustainability is your biggest PR risk and next commercial imperative. Rosie, thank you. It's over to you.
Thank you very much, Colin, for the nice introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think your brilliant tech team are now going to add up my slides. Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, as I said, it's a pleasure to be here. I know we have a very international audience, so that means good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. I'm Rosie Davenport. I'm the founder of a company called Impact Focus. We help businesses with their robust sustainability planning and strategy. And once we have that in place, we help them communicate all the good actions that they're taking. And today, as you say, Colin, I'm going to be talking about the value of social sustainability and why it is a business risk and indeed a PR risk for companies that ignore it. So, as I said, it's everyone is dialing in from everywhere. And I, today, am dialing in from a rather wintry London. It's definitely winter here and autumnal has arrived. Now, last week, I bought a really nice new coat and I was really, really happy with it. I chose it because I saw a picture in a glossy magazine and I was really pleased when I went to the store. They had exactly the right size I wanted, in the right colour. I was completely made up. And today, when I was walking to my office, I was so grateful for it because it kept the wind out, it kept the rain out, and I was super snug. But it did get me thinking, and I thought, I love this coat, but how much do I really know about this coat? Do I know how it was made, really? Do I know that the people that were making this coat were treated fairly? Can I be sure that they weren't going through unimaginable situations where they were working in their workplace? Do I know they were being paid fairly? And I guess these are some of the questions that consumers around the world are asking themselves about everyday purchases they're making. Would I still be as delighted with my coats had I'd been able to answer some of those questions? And it's not obviously only fashion where this is happening. So let's take another scenario. Now, many people on this call today, they may enjoy a glass of wine occasionally. And you've probably then seen the gold medals and stickers that are on wine bottles and the awards they win. But do you ever question what's behind the label, what's behind those gold stars? So despite those awards and really glowing reviews, do you know what's happened in the vineyard? Do you know that the growers and the pickers have they been treated fairly? Do they get regular breaks, or are they having to work in vineyards that are in burning temperatures without access to any shelter whatsoever, and perhaps even without water? And I guess when you start to ask these questions, and it's not only of fashion and wine and everything else, it becomes a question of, am I aligned to that brand? Am I aligned to this product? Do I know that this thing in front of me, does that represent my values? And as I said, I think this is something that consumers around the world are asking about everything that they are buying. And that's really from coffee to cars, to cameras, to clothes. But what does that really look like in practice? So the issue that companies have is that if you're not on top of your supply chains in the scenarios that I'm explaining, then you're at risk. And you are at risk of reputational damage and headlines like this. Now, I mocked this up today. This isn't real news, but it's the sort of headline that you might see in the country or in the city where you live. And we've all seen these kinds of headlines over the years. Unfortunately, we want to see fewer of them. But this is what a scandal, this is what risk looks like in reality. And I have to say, as a comms professional and previously as a journalist, this is what every brand's worst nightmare looks like. It's what every company fears. And it's really what all boards around the world will try to avoid. So what we're seeing here is stark headlines about the behavior of this company that then translates into social media. And as you'll see with my fictitious story here, an investor's result. So it is a PR disaster that could have quite easily been avoided. And we have seen multiple cases where the outcome actually has been that the company has closed altogether. So what this means when you get back into the kind of the realm of the consumer is that this vulnerability, this negative criticism and this reputational risk, it means that trust is being eroded. And that is something, again, that brands will always want to avoid. They want brand loyalty. They want you to come back to their brand to repeat buy. And this trust is very hard won. And there's some statistics here that you can see about this consumer trust now being really on the floor globally. However, there is a silver lining to this. And this is this figure at the bottom, which is the 9.7% of consumers who say they are prepared to pay more for sustainably made products. So that's a real uptick, but it does, again, give more challenges to brands in order to say, well, actually, how do we achieve that? How do we get that commercial advantage? And how do we make sure our brand keeps front of mind and maintains consumer trust? Well, it is really very simple. It sounds simple. Should we say it that way instead? One word here is proof. So where I'm asking here, how do brands, how do businesses future-proof their businesses, especially in the age of greenwashing and this erosion of trust? It's proof. And that is really backed up by evidence, audits, and actions. And these are tangible things that brands can communicate with credibility so long as they have the proof. And that all engenders trust and forges those strong ongoing relationships. So we are in a new frontier for sustainability and sustainability communications too. What has happened so far, more broadly, is that we've spent a decade building environmental narratives, but now people want to understand the human side of what they're buying. But here's the problem. As we've seen, these consumers are skeptical. So where I showed you before, that 20% of consumers who believe that they don't believe what brands are saying about their sustainability claims. And what about the rest then? So well, they either doubt it completely or they're somewhere in the middle. So in other words, this pattern of distrust it does exist. And I think what is important is as the evolution of ESG happens, people want the S in ESG, and there is appetite for understanding what is actually happening throughout the supply chain. And as I said on the previous slides, this silver lining that consumers are prepared to pay more for products where they can see that is evidenced. Now, without going too far into it, of course, the geopolitical situation is changing the world of ESG. And as I said, it is maturing. So one question that we talk to clients about, and it's one that you will see wherever you are in the world, discussed in newspapers and in other forums like this, is what's the point of ESG right now? So why should companies bother? Next question, aren't businesses retreating on their pledges and governments really watering their legislations and their regulations? Well, as you'll see on this slide, I take a slightly different view because I think there is a longer longer range picture to look at. So on the left, where you have those headlines that you're seeing globally, which say, yeah, okay, there's rollbacks here and there, and there's a discourse happening among political leaders where we're saying, actually, this is not so important to our agenda anymore. I mean, those conversations will continue, but the long-term trajectory is where we need to look at as responsible businesses. So I would urge to really consider what's happening on the right-hand side of this slide, which is the direction of travel. So we have already now legislation that is in place globally, and that we see as accelerating. That trend is accelerating. And where rollbacks are happening at a political and governmental level, we are seeing that actually there is renewed pressure from investors, which I'll come on to shortly, but also consumers. So even where legislation isn't keeping up and developing as fast as perhaps we might prefer, there is a pull that is coming anyway, and that is not going to change. So it really is a question of what buyers want. It's commercial pressures, it's investor pressures, and it's definitely consumer pressure. And as I said, in any case, we're already seeing some very, very robust legislation in areas around the world, which is now set in stone. And even if there's tweaks that come along the way, they are still things that brand owners and commercial businesses they must adhere to. And I'll just explain a little bit more about that. So I'm saying here that as legislation is accelerating, what does that mean in practice? Well, it means what used to be, I guess, in communication terms, a PR embarrassment, a PR disaster, is now a compliance risk. So where, for example, you've got in the UK, the CMA, that now has real teeth. So if a company makes a claim which the CMA deems is inappropriate, is inaccurate, there are fines of up to 10% of your profits, which you can then lose. So there's real robust elements now which are holding businesses to account. And as I said, it's not only in the UK, but we are seeing many laws developing that are already making stronger frameworks that companies have to abide by. Let's turn again then to the commercial angle on this and what's happening. So this is what I was explaining about this growing expectation from investors and trading partners. And they are looking for not claims, they want to see a move to proof, because they want full transparency and trust. And this crucially includes social impact. So investors are asking much, much harder questions, and it's not only about carbon. So they want to know how you treat your people. So retailers like Metro, we're just about to hear from Elisa about all their great work, but many others, LCBO, the Nordic monopolies, they are all tightening their compliance expectations to their supply base, and they want to see your homework. They want to understand how you're achieving the numbers that you are, and actually are the checks and measures all in place. What about procurement? Well, the procurement teams, they're building risk registers that really flag up weaknesses in social performance. And the hard line of that is no proof equals no purchase order. And I don't think that that's a message that many businesses can ignore. So where do we go from here? Well, I think if we look at, for instance, then what the FSSC is organising with their new standard, this is the sort of thing that actually delivers that proof that companies need to show. And again, we already can see that is now becoming more widely adopted, and there is global traction around this new standard. And here I'm just outlining some of the benefits so that you can get a feel for actually what it does that's different to other assurances and certificates in the market. So the fact that it is ISO aligned, it is audible, it is globally recognised, makes it very strong. I also add in here about the labour rights, the governance and the due diligence elements, which again will make it stand out. And finally, and I say this, as I said, as a comms professional and a former journalist, it's not PR-led, it's very robust, and it is also not a one-off audit. So there is the sense of the ongoing improvement and really this commitment to do better as a business. And all of that is demonstrated by this. So in case I haven't reinforced it strongly enough, if you permit me, I will just cover off what I see as the business case for this. So I've used the word proof a lot today. And this is really the proof, the evidence for disclosing the social as well as environmental impacts and using third-party endorsements and the value that they can bring. So here are the 5 benefits that company boards really can't afford to ignore, broken down, distilled down as I see them. So as I said, there's that element of meeting the requirements of retailers and buyers, knowing that what you're saying you're doing, you are doing. Also lowering that compliance risk. Most companies are risk averse. So again, having these third-party assurances is crucial. Again, building that trust, making sure it's not been eroded. You're ahead of the curve as well. So you are doing things now which other companies will be playing catch up on. So get ahead on these things. And finally, on the communication side, it gives you the ability to win hearts and minds with stronger stories based on data and evidence. And again, that will put the brands that are leading the way in this area in a much stronger position. So to sum up from me, I feel the message is clear. Companies, don't wait. Get ready because more legislation is coming. And social sustainability is at the forefront of this. The direction of travel is now well and truly established. And even if the goalposts do move in ESG, and as it matures, it's still a crucial part of your business. And I would say that pursuing the third-party independent certification is the best way to achieve that lasting credibility. And I think what is being presented here today is again, hopefully, a lot of inspiration for the companies who are curious and want to see if it's for them. So my final slide is just to thank you for having me today. I've really enjoyed this. Look forward to a thorough discussion to come. And just to share my details, please do reach out. We're here to help if we can at any point in your journey. And thank you again for having me. I'll pass back to Colin on that note.
Thank you very much, Rosie. Rosie, I think in the time that I've been running these webinars as moderator, you're the first journalist we've had, self-confessed journalist. And I know particularly your experience as well, working for such esteemed publications such as The Grocer as well, which, like I said, I read every week. It's great to have you here. So thank you for joining us today. And there's some amazing points there that we'll be able to build on with Elza as well. So you can take a rest now until question time. And thank you very much for your contribution. Great to have you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. So as Rosie said there, as a journalist actually, with a journalistic background, somebody who understands good corporate communications, it's about proof and about evidence. And what we'd like to do now is turn to our next speaker, from Rosie to Elza Palenik from Metro AG. And also we introduced you earlier as one of our new BOS members, and also it's really great because Metro AG are also happily endorsing for your supply chain FSSC 24000 as well, and no doubt you'll be able to talk a little bit about this and how it would meet your requirements, etc. But without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Elza now. The floor's yours, and thank you again for coming your contribution.
Thank you, Colin, and greetings from my side to everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, as we are considering many people are around the world. And then, let me just guide you through on the Metro approach. And thank you for Rosie for this nice summary from the communication point of view. And let's see how we do in the business and how we started and how we set up and how we are driving this journey since a long time. So from my side, thank you, Colin. You already introduced myself or me, and then I just would like to add that I'm coming from Metro AG, and the head of QA sustainability is my role, which means that mainly my main focus is the QA development, so own brand development. And with this, we are connected with the CR department very strongly on the sustainability requirements. So that's why I have very strong connection about the sustainability, and among others we have the social compliance. First of all, I would like to give you just a quick glance about Metro. It's a company with the group revenue 31 billion euro. We have roughly 85,000 employees around the world, 624 wholesale stores, and we are operating in 33 countries at the moment, which includes 12 of the FSD, so-called FSD companies, which are food service delivery companies. Just to give you some information how our business set, so we are a pure wholesaler targeting HoReCa industry and the traders. HoReCa is for those who's not into this area, is the hotel, restaurant, catering, and also for independent traders we are targeting. How our strategy and multi-channels is setting up, you can see in the right-hand side of the picture. So we have the wholesale stores, the classic setup. We have the delivery service, and then also the digital marketplace nowadays. And we all over in every channels, we are having the digital solution for our customers as within our channels. So it's really important for us to go in that direction. And now I would like to guide you through on our ESG strategy, first from the helicopter point of view, and then we go a bit deeper with the social compliance and the process we have. So a long time ago, it was already 15 years ago, when we started the sustainability journey, the CR set up in our organization. We already saw, and it was urged to think about our stake in or our responsibility in this big topic. We saw and we know nowadays that the resources which the Earth can provide us for a year, it's used very early as it's counted in the overshoot day. And if we are not really do something and not acting, it's really could be a crisis later on. So we also put a question for us and see that Metro has a big stake in it. And we see as a challenge because we are also working with resources, and it's really basically our trading. So our idea to set up the whole thing in a CR perspective, but you also need to think about the wholesaler perspective, because we have our stakeholders externally and internally. So our CR department really set up and put in everybody's DNA, like every department was involved, and also all the entities which we are working in the countries, they are involved in this discussion, and they have their own parts in every topic which might affect the sustainability or CR topics. As you can see, many departments like such as sourcing, own brand and QA marketing, HR are involved, and our external stakeholders such as employees or investor customers, also NGOs and regulators are also involved in our approach. So let me just move to the next slide to show you our strategy, the ESG strategy. Briefly, just to give you the three pillars that we have: the climate and carbon, the diversity, equity and inclusion, and the ethic and trust. These are the three main topics which we are following. So these three pillars came to this target or strategy since for 3 years. And then we were maturing and evaluating based on legislation, based on inputs, based on experience, based on different policies which we already had. And then we came out with these 3 pillars, which are our basics and most important pillars. Regarding the climate and carbon, we are focusing on reducing the emission and the waste in our operation. In ethic and trust, we are targeting ethical and transparent supply chain, trusted partner for our customers, and also the responsible sourcing. And diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are care for health and well-being of our people, and we have in our strategy very strongly inside the one metro culture, which we really supporting. So these are the 3 main topics which we are dealing with. And let me just focus on now, because we are talking about the social compliance, the ethic and trust. Here, 2 main topics which we are targeting is the social compliance in our operation and the supply chain, and transparency and responsible sourcing. Here are some targets which we defined for ourselves. We would like to target the compliance with the supply chain due diligence, so some regulations, which is coming up, as it was mentioned by Rosie also before. It's coming up every year, something new, so we really need to be on top of that. And also own brand social compliance, which we are targeting to 2030. I will show you the journey, how we started and where we are now. And regarding traceability, because we also see it's really essential in our ultra fresh and own brand articles. Regarding the social compliance, it started very early, so the discussion started already in 2010. And our team, CR team at that time, really defined the schemes which were available and which were meeting with our requirement in Metro to target our suppliers, and then to get really on board them, we define the policy. First of all, we see the risk and the higher risk in non-food. So we started the implementation in 2012 in non-food supplier base. And then the next step was in 2019, when we started the near food and food suppliers, where we see less risk. However, we wanted to also have the full overview in our suppliers base, especially in our own brand articles. Since the beginning, we defined the policy setup, so not only for social compliance, but for other initiative, other sustainability, environmental sustainability aims. We define metro policies, and one of the policies is social compliance. And this was really important because these policies are reviewed minimum 2 years, every 2 years, just to follow the regulation changes, follow the strategy which we are following in our company, also taking into consideration any new schemes, because we are always evaluating the schemes which we are accepting. And then in this policy, our objective for sure is to comply, to ensure the socially and legally compliant along our supply chain and adhering the national laws, such as German Supply Chain Due Diligence Act. So it's really important for us. The target deadline I already mentioned is 2030. And then we are targeting mainly the own brand ultra fresh articles and no name suppliers in our policy. In this new version was reviewed 1 year ago, and then the baseline of our reporting is 2023-24. As it was mentioned that this was the first job to evaluate which are the schemes we are including in this social policy. We are always including the new ones, and we always considering checking what is our needs, which we would like to consider. And this was especially first time the BSCI and the SEDEX, which everybody knows. And recently also we put on our list and the requirements, which we are accepting, the FSSC 24000. Regarding the social compliance policy, just to give you a brief information, our commitment is, as it was mentioned, protecting the human rights across its supply chain, the transparency with the risk management base. So we have an IT supported tools where we are involving or putting our suppliers evaluation based on our risk assessment. How we do it's like we have measures to mitigate the risk. So we provide trainings, dedicated questionnaires to our suppliers, and of course request social compliance audits and certification from our business partners. We are having the collaborative approach, so we are working together with our suppliers, our peers. We have platforms. We also have a good connection or a strong connection with NGOs, external experts, and of course the certification bodies and scheme owners. Our suppliers' expectations, it's always shared with them within any contract or our requirement, where we are requesting the information and the basic information which we need for the social compliance. The implementation regarding this requirement for any new suppliers, you can see here, we are always collecting the supplier name and address, and we are not stopping here. We are always asking the producers, so the associated production sites which we are having with the suppliers. We also requesting the address. We are evaluating or requesting the associated risk status from them and the social compliance audits. And all this information gathered and set in our system based on our CR responsible colleague evaluation. And it's maintained in the database, which we have, as I mentioned, an IT tool, and it's available for all our colleagues all over the world who are dealing with this social compliance topic. And of course, we also defined strict rules in case of deal breakers, which means for us deal breakers issues is like child labor, forced labor, fire safety failings with imminent danger, serious unethical behavior, and then we immediately suspend the supplier, delete the articles. Of course, it's after evaluation and alignment within the company. And then until it's not changed the status or it's not possible to come back to deliver in our companies. This macro social compliance, it was immediately an important point in our life, in our company life, and we see that we need to really act on it. As Rosie said, we cannot ignore such topic, and it's really important to mitigate the risk. You cannot really avoid everything, but at least with this certification, with this ensurement, and with this audit, you could have a good picture about the companies. And you can just have the feeling and the feedback from the suppliers that they really take into consideration and control it. So this is how we set up our approach, and this is how we are dealing with our suppliers, and we are believing this is the right way. At the moment, we see this is working properly, and then we are happy to continue, and then we see that the regulation anyway is getting stronger and stronger. So even if we are defining our own requirements, it's always supporting the legal point of view. So I think the direction is that, and it's really supported by us. From my side, that was in a nutshell what I would like to share with you. I hope it was clear. Anyway, we will have some question part, so you can come back to me, and thank you for your attention. And I also would like to share my contact later. You can connect with me. I'm reachable also on LinkedIn. Thank you for your attention.
Comprehensive and very impressive to get a large organisation's view on this topic, particularly building on Rosie's. We can take Q&A at the end, but we've got a couple of questions coming already, and I'd really like to use this opportunity while it's fresh in the mind. So obviously organisations like Metro, you have very large supply chains and a lot of exposure of the sort that Rosie described. And really, we've got a couple of questions come in about that actually. So I'll dovetail the two together. So from your perspective, your corporate perspective at Metro, how do certifications and standards and schemes like FSSC 24000 really help you drive value across your supply chain? That's question number one. If you can hold that for a moment. And while I've got the floor, I'll ask the next one. You've spoken about the journey you've been on at Metro in terms of which schemes, standards, etc., you'll accept and ask your suppliers for. What advice for you at Metro would you give other large organisations that are going through the process currently and looking at schemes like FSSC 24000? What advice would you give them to say, yes, we select this particular scheme or standard rather than this one? So kind of a bit about your thought process as well as the benefit these bring to your organisation. If you can answer those, that'd be great. Then we can move to Francisco afterwards, give you a rest.
Okay. Hope I can really capture the question. So the first one, yeah, it's a long time we are setting up this system, so it's not a new for us. And then just help me with Colin, what was really the main question for the first one, because I'm really losing the...
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so I have the benefit of a little pen in my hand. So basically it was what benefit to schemes such as FSSC 24000, how do they help you and your organisations that are being certified, for instance, or assessed?
Yeah, for these schemes, so we are always evaluating by experts. So these schemes are always evaluated by our experts. And along the way, we also learned that this is helping us already to do the audit. So to have already a view on a company. And based on their scoring system, we got the feeling where is the status, where are the risk status, where are they are in their journey in the social compliance. So we already get this insight from the audit result, and then based on this result we are really defining and setting up our system and evaluating our suppliers. So this is how we do. And then to select these schemes, it's always at the beginning, it started like based on expert ID or feedback. And then along the way, we already gained our experience. And then now we also do the selection. Regarding FSSC, we had the possibility to do a pilot together. So we also had a closer insight about FSSC 24000. So we could really support the scheme owner team or the working group team. What is important to be involved in this scheme. So we also somehow contributed in this working group. The second question, please help me because
I think actually, Elsa, you've kind of answered it really, and I think the best way to describe it is it's you're on a journey, your organisations you're working with are on a journey. One of the questions I often ask organisations when they're thinking about adopting something like ISO-based schemes such as FSSC 24000 would be what's in it for them and why should I? And I think between us collectively we have to answer that question to make sure it brings value to all parts of the ecosystem. I think we've seen a lot today, the drivers, why we need things, and then it's basically does a scheme like FSSC 24000, does it solve a problem for an organisation like yourselves? And that's kind of ultimately the question, and about how you can help others. Thank you for the answer. I think you answered it beautifully. The kind of hopefully the questioner there, Arjun, got the sort of answer he was looking for. And of course, we can always carry on the conversation afterwards through future webinars. Thank you very much, Elsa. Really great to have you on board. I'm now going to turn my attention to Francisco here in the studio. And Francisco is going to go right back to the building block and talk a bit more about FSSC 24000 as our strategic advisor in FSSC. Over to you, Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Hello, everyone. So I will try to go a little faster on that to catch up time so we can have time for questions. In fact, we have talked on other webinars what 24000 is. So it's a social management system, it's a scheme. So in fact, 24000 is a volunteer certification scheme. You can do it if you want. It's not mandatory, it's not forced by any law, but in fact it's doing what is required by many of the laws, in particular the modern laws that they are now out there. It's about social, we have discussed, and in fact it strives to ensure that people have a decent work, that they have a place of work where they are paid what they need for living, where the conditions of work are right, where the buildings are safe, where there is a respect of the rights and the rights of the workers, where there is equality, and all the topics that goes around people, around social, and about the societies where those companies they are embedded. And they do that by using what is called a management system. That means it's not a check that is done time to time. It's not a verification that is done at a specific moment in time. It's embedding this way of thinking and embedding these activities in the day-to-day work of the company. And that's why this is what ISO brings, and this is the value of having an ongoing way of managing that all these requirements are satisfied day in, day out. By doing that, you are really creating an impact. That is what FSSC wants to do, have an impact on society, because of course everything that relates to human, they are strongly linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. There is half of the Sustainable Development Goals that they are touched by the FSSC 24,000 scheme. So just very fast, understand that it's not only thank you. It's not only food, because people, they tend to associate FSSC with food. It's virtually everything on the processing and manufacturing sector and the service sector. So secondary and tertiary industry is, as we said, is other industries, including chemical, textile, clothing, and by the way, we have already a certain number of companies that they are certified on all those. It's not only about food. That includes services. A very fast, quick look at the structure. The structure, if you are familiar with ISO, is exactly the same that any other ISO norm. If you look at the top, it's past 24,000, that is a standard by the British Standard Institution. That is a publicly available standard. And he has the same content, the same chapter, the same vocabulary that any other ISO standard from chapter 4 to chapter 10. You evaluate the risk, you put a continuous improvement cycle, and those are the two components that all the new laws require, and we talk that when we see about benefits. The topics that they are included into this management system is, as we can see on the second part, what is marked on Annex A, is human rights, is labor, forced labor, child labor, freedom of association, discrimination, occupational health and safety, building safety, and then employment and contractual relations. And there are many, many offenses to those that they are unluckily day to day in the world. On top of that, there are requirements that are specific to 24,000 that comes from FSSC, that is in particular, and most importantly, what is the integrity program that makes robust this scheme. On the same way that 22,000 from FSSC is now recognized quality and is a trusted label because of the integrity program that ensures that things are done the way that they should. On the same way, we have applied all the knowledge of FSSC into 24,000 to reproduce exactly the same environment. Now, what are the benefits of doing that? So, what makes unique 24,000 is that is a certification that is new, but is already being studied and approved by the International Accreditation Forum and by the SSCI, so the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative, which regroups, and we will see after, many companies. It's based on risk, and because it's ISO, it's based on risk, and he proposed a continuous improvement cycle. This is the requirement of all the modern laws. This is the requirement of CS3D, the new Chinese law, the law in India, the law in Thailand, and the law in many countries around the world, where they are requiring, please, we don't want you to, on a passive way, make an audit to see what has happened already and correct what is wrong. What we are saying is manage your risk ahead and avoid those risks to happen. And that is a totally different approach. So you are based on risk, and you continuously are, as your activities evolve, you are making evolve your analysis of risk, and you are making evolve the control that you put in place to avoid those risks to happen. So as we said, it's based on ISO, which makes that it's easy to integrate with other ISO that you may have. Typically, food companies, they have 22,000, but most companies on textile and on other industries, on the chemical industry, they have ISO 9001 for quality, and a lot of them, they have already ISO 14001 for the environment. Actually, there is more than close to 1.4 million of certifications of sites certified on ISO 14001 and more than 1.5 million in 9001. So if you have already one of those, doing 24,000 is extremely familiar for you because it's basically the same ISO structure. So as we said, it's a volunteer system and you will get certified for 3 years with a review of your certification. And the interesting thing is not only about you, it's about you and your supply chain. And we know that for most companies, the risk, they are not on their activities, the risks are on the activities done within the supply chain, but their providers that may or may not have the same level of standards that they have. This is what Elza was talking before. So finally, just to give you an idea, this is all the companies on SSCI. As I said, SSCI has approved FSSC 24000. Metro is there, is one of them. And just to finalize, just highlight again the integration that you can do due to the fact that it's an ISO-based management system. You can seamlessly integrate through the harmonized structure and have on the same management system, for example, your food safety and your social environment, or if you want to do an ESG approach, you can have 14,001 for the environment, 24,000 for the social, and 9,001 for quality and governance. So you have ESG into a single unified management system. So on top of that, the fact of putting in place a formal management system where you are evaluating the risk of the activities of your company, you are setting targets, you are creating key performance indicators, and you are creating controls, you are measuring those controls, automatically all this data that you are generating, you can reuse for your reporting. So if you need to follow CSRD in the European Union, or you have a reporting where you are reusing the European Sustainability Reporting Standard, you are already generating through your management system all the data or most of the data that you need to demonstrate the activities that you are doing. And you will see that a large part of your reporting mechanism or your reporting requirements can be fulfilled with 24,000. Finally, an important thing is, yes, it's a volunteer certification that you can do, but it's already on the, as Rosie said on one slide, when things are moving from volunteer reporting and public relations to compliance, new laws are coming, and all those new laws have the same structure. They require that you manage risk, and that based on your risk management, you put a management system in place, exactly the structure of what ISO proposed and what FSSC 24000 proposed. So that means that by deploying today 24000, you are already shielded and prepared to face the new upcoming legislation that over the next years will come. Already, as I mentioned, for reporting, that is since last year is active in Europe, but in a couple of years for the Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, and you will already have all what you need in place for that. So this is a very fast view, just trying to go over the benefits and what makes particular 24000, what makes it unique, just to try to demonstrate or try to show how 24000 can be a solution for what Rosie was presenting on his presentation, and why Metro considers 24000 a contributor to their objectives. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Francisco, and thanks always for coming into the studio firsthand. It's always a pleasure to have you. And of course, you've also been working with the consultants in the 24,000 space. And recently you did a webinar with consultants as well. And I think you've got more of those coming up as well, if I understand correctly.
Yes, there is another coming mid of November. And what we try is, what we would like is not be broadcasting and having a forum where we are telling people things, is to have an open space where people can ask questions, where we can try to answer with pragmatic and practical approaches to what they need to put in place 24,000, what are the most common hurdles on dealing with an ISO management system and putting in place the social side.
Thank you, Francisco. And of course, looking at next year as well, we'll look at some other topics, very specific topics around some of the areas of FSSC 24,000 and pull those out and really help organisations on their journey as well. So thank you for that. I'm not going to ask you any more questions. I'm conscious of time, but we do have one update actually, which dovetails in beautifully to what you were talking about there. And that is many organisations around the world use EcoVadis as a screening tool, and you spoke about reporting, disclosures, and we've had Rosie speaking about this as well. And we're also pleased to let you know on this webinar that we have also had FSSC 24,000 is now also recognised by EcoVadis, and if organisations out there have FSSC 24,000, they can obviously file that with their disclosures as well. This has been the case for some time for FSSC 22,000, but now we're pleased to say that EcoVadis also recognise it for FSSC 24,000. So this is a very positive step as well, and builds on also what you were saying there, Francisco. So that's good news, and we also thank EcoVadis for the engagement on that as well. And we'll see if we can bring EcoVadis into the studio next year, and perhaps we can do a joint webinar with them as well. It's something to look forward to, and we can plan. For now, I've got a bit of summing up to do, but I want to ask one quick question here that's also come in from the audience, and I'm going to direct this to Rosie. So Rosie, the question is, do you have any advice about communicating social sustainability and avoiding greenwashing? I'm not sure if we really call it greenwashing when it comes to social, but I think you understand the question. Social washing, whatever it is, but you understand the concept, particularly as a journalist and a communications professional. What do you say on this one?
Thanks. I'm very happy to take that one, Colin. Yeah, and look, I think you're quite right. It's more social washing, and I think really it's about having proper transparency around your communications. So everything really that you're saying must be rooted in fact. So if you've got evidence to substantiate the claims that you're making, then you're on safe grounds. Really, the grey areas, of course, are where companies reporting what they're doing with overreach, and they say, look, we're doing this fantastic thing over here, but and it turns out to not be as good as it sounds. And as I said, it's marketing overreach. So I think it's about having a robust strategy in the first place that then leads to evidence and that proof that I was talking about earlier. And that's really when companies can start to feel that the communications they're putting out is greenwash free, it's social wash free, and actually it builds their credibility. And as I was trying to reinforce over and over, consumers are expecting this, and so are your investors and your business partners too. So it is now a business imperative to get that right. So hopefully that gives enough of a flavour and answers that question, Colin.
Thank you, Rose. That's perfect, and great answer from a communications professional as well. So thank you for your time today, Rosie, and thank you, Elza, for yours. And Francisco, of course, always a pleasure to have you in the studio. So we did have some of those Q's and A's already answered. We took a few live in real time. What I'm going to come to now is a last couple of slides to wrap up for the occasion. And first of all, it's about the documents that are available on our website. As a not-for-profit, all these documents are free. We build a library. Please go to the website. All of the information about 24,000 is there. You've had the contact details today from our esteemed speakers. Please do feel free to get in contact with them. And we've also, as well as the scheme documents themselves, we have the guidance documents. And all of the information to get you started is there. and many organisations have already begun the journey, and we'll be very shortly looking forward to welcoming a very interesting organisation in the Asia region who'll be certified as well. And as FSSC 24000 is adopted around the world using these documents, you'll see more of those on our public register. Now, finally, around the world, of course, we do have the team of market representatives at FSSC, and you can see on the picture there, these are the representatives that work in the market development team, the team that I look after in FSSC, and they'll all be really happy to support alongside Francisco. If you want to get in touch, we can have conversations, we can present to your colleagues, etc., in your organisations more deeply about FSSC 24000. And with that, we'd like to say thank you for your time today. We're at the hour, and as always, we appreciate your attendance. We hope you've had a valuable session. We thank our excellent speakers today, and FSSC 24000, make with care, certify for trust, and we wish you well on your journey. Thank you very much for your time today. Goodbye.